welcome to First Things First. I'm Jenna Wolfe. That's the Hall of Famer Cris Carter. That is Nick Wright.
What up, Jenna Wolfe?
What's up, Nick Wright?
C? Good morning, everybody.
I need some coffee this morning.
Need some coffee.
Late night last night.
Couple nights off, though. Back-to-back nights starting tonight with no playoff games. So some early bedtimes if we can.
Cece and I were worried about you. What you're going to be doing the next couple nights, how you'll get through until Saturday.
Well, it's also, my wife's also out of town. Be able to go to bed real early, try to catch up some sleep in the last 6 months. So it'll be good.
Oh, that probably means you'll probably be in my neighborhood gambling, playing cards.
There is
Danielle's gone.
What's the chance of rain today? 100%?
Always is.
There is an equally good chance that tomorrow night I'll be down in Tribeca playing a few little cards and maybe sleeping on Cece's couch. But, you know, that's what friends are for.
There's a reason we're tired. The game went late. Let's talk about it. Last night, the Rockets reminded us why they won 65 games this regular season and how they won 65 games this regular season. They came out aggressive, they came out in control, and they let other players touch the ball. They also blew past the Warriors in Game 2 from start until finish. P.J. Tucker and Eric Gordon combined for 49 points after scoring just a combined 16 points in Game 1. The Rockets win, even up this series at a game apiece. Here's head coach Mike D'Antoni after the game.
We are who we are, and we had to be who we are. We just did it better, longer. Guys believe it, and we're not going to change anything up. It would be silly on my part to panic. I mean, you don't do that. We're very comfortable about who we are, and we can beat anybody, anywhere, at any time, playing the way we play.
So we had that mindset tonight after the loss to be the aggressor, and we have to keep that same mentality in Game 3 and Game 4. Like, no matter where we are, if we have that mindset, we're in good hands.
They were desperate tonight. They played like it, and we didn't. And the results showed.
Look, yesterday we heard Rockets coach Mike D'Antoni say, this is the way we played. We're not going to get away from it. It's what drew us here. It's what got us here. It's what gave us the #1 seed. And give him credit for going out and basically playing the same way. And now we've got ourselves a series. How are the Rockets, CC, able to turn things around in Game 2?
Yeah, I'll give the coach credit because I think there was only two things that he could do. When he made those statements as far as, yes, we're an ISO team, but knowing that he isolated, and especially James Harden, more so in the first game than any other series, seeing what he did in game #2 where, yeah, they did isolation again, but they did it off the fast break. They did also isolation instead of a pick and roll, having Capella at the top of the key or extended out onto the court. No, they had him either in the corner or at the wing, which he didn't get in the way offensively as much. So, yes, this is the only style he can coach.
Yep.
So the coach is being right. Yeah, I mean, if you look back any years, go back to Phoenix, go back to any years he coached, this is what he's going to do. Now, this is the best personnel that he's ever had, and that's the reason why they won 65 games. But the things that you won't see is that when they went out and got P.J. Tucker, when they went out and got Chris Paul, yeah, we need spot-up shooters. We need other people to handle the ball, be more athletic. But we need guys who are tough and who can play some defense. And that's what you were able to see in this game. I'm not going to go as far as Steve Kerr and say they were desperate, but what they did was they played defense, and they played with the type of energy that a championship team needs to play with. They recognized that from game #1. So, yes, they got up and down the court, but Clint Capella getting out on the – when you see him isolated on Kevin Durant, it's an inspiration to his teammates being out there. You got Kevin Durant, one of the best ball handlers, who lit him up in game #1.
Great sequence.
Was on fire in game #2. He gets switched on Kevin Durant. And when you can slow down one of the best offensive players in the world, it sends a message to the rest of the teammates. This is the type of effort that we need. And you could see it went from the coach and the style that they're going to play into their leaders, Capella, Chris Paul, and the rest of them. And you could see it on the court.
Listen. What you saw last night, that was Rockets basketball. What you saw in Game 1 was a bad version of Rockets basketball. Last night, their defensive rating, identical to what it was for the season. Their assist rate, nearly identical. Their turnover percentage, identical. Their fast break points, identical. The only thing that was different about last night compared to who they were throughout the regular season is they were slightly better shooting, which is why they scored 127 as opposed to their regular season average, which was closer to 117. That's the only difference, right? That is Rockets basketball. I talked about how they led the league in isolation plays in Game 1. I mean, in the regular season. In Game 1, they had the most isolation plays any team has had in 5 years. In Game 2, they had more, but it looked differently. Why? Because, see, you brought up a stat that the broadcast showed that was remarkable, that James Harden in Game 1 had more dribbles than who?
All three of the Warriors. Like, it was amazing. Clay, Steph, and KD.
Those three players had 549 dribbles in Game 1. James Harden had 550. So it wasn't that they didn't isolate in Game 2. They isolated at the exact same rate as Game 1.
Yes.
It was quicker isolations. It wasn't dribble, dribble, dribble for 17 seconds. There were no shot clock violations the entire game. And it was isolations to drive and kick, to get guys open.
Yeah, they didn't make up their mind on isolation that they had to get to the hole. Sometime if they could get to the hole and finish, they did, which got the Warriors in foul trouble. But most of the time, they drove in, got 2 feet in the lane, Nick. We talked about this, kicked out to an open shooter, or the hockey assist where that guy dished the ball to someone else for a better shot.
And I want to say one thing quickly about the defense that I will give the Rockets credit for, because it took courage. Kevin Durant is locked in. Right? Mm-hmm. Kevin Durant, 38 points to finish the last series, 37 and 38 in this series. And they decided, we are not going to do what I said they should do, consistently double him. They said, if KD is going to get 40, he's going to get 40. What we're not going to allow is him to get 30, but then Clay to get 25, Steph to get 30. And so while Kevin Durant has 75 points in these first 2 playoff games, he also has 1 assist in these first 2 playoff games. So they are not letting Kevin Durant create offense for other people, let Steph see shots go in, let Clay see shots go in. And I agree with Steve Kerr. I thought it was odd Steve Kerr said it, but this was a desperate Rockets team. You can't go down 0-2 at home. It's odd to hear the other coach say the team was desperate after just 1 game, but he's right. You can't go down 0-2 at home. It's the most important game the Rockets have played as a franchise, I don't know, in 20 years, you could argue, and they came out and did exactly what they needed to do.
You're right. Kevin Durant is completely locked in and seemingly unstoppable. But Steph Curry came out again and struggled last night. How much of what Steph Curry is doing right now is because Houston is limiting him? How much of it is because he's getting frustrated? Or do you think he's just not 100%?
No, this is playoff basketball. Steph's 100%. He's on the court. All right, you're on the court. You're accountable. No one's going to give you some type of built-in excuse.
Thank you.
You have signed up for what you're getting ready to get. It's the end of a long, long season. No one's 100%, but it's good defense by Houston. But it's also, this team knows Steph. They're familiar with Steph. And Steph is a little limited. He's going against the best backcourt in the NBA in Chris Paul. And not necessarily Steph, but Clay. Clay not getting off. That prevents Steph from being able to be a volume shooter. And a stat that was given to me was really important was Chris Paul, when he is guarding Clay. I know you asked me about Steph. But Clay not being able to get off against Chris Paul has been big as far as the Rockets defense. He's shooting 25% field goal percent, 16% from three-point range when Chris Paul is on him. So you talk about the effect on the backcourt of the Golden State Warriors. A lot of it has to do with the Houston Rockets and Chris Paul.
And part of what's going on with Steph, I keep harping on this point, not just because of foul trouble, but because of fatigue. The Rockets are hunting him down on the defensive end. They are making him work. And when you have to work defensively, when the way you get your offense, if you're Steph Curry typically, is running off that many screens, when it's playoff basketball, so it's a little more physical, and you're slight of frame, it's exhausting. The reason I'm really glad to see that you're not going to buy into what the broadcast was, which is always not 100%, is he injured, is if you watch the game, he's getting to the basket like vintage Steph Curry. His shots aren't falling.
Yeah, but he's going against the best team in the NBA.
Right, exactly.
Proven over 82 games a schedule.
No, exactly right. Like Steph, we have seen, Steph is one of the most dynamic offensive talents I've ever seen in NBA history. But we have seen time and again in different playoff series where the teams go at him defensively, where they beat him up on the offensive end, that he's going to have some stretches where he just isn't that effective offensively.
And most teams, they put Steph on a guy where Steph can rest. You don't have that luxury when you go against the Rockets because everyone on the court is a threat to be able to score, be able to shoot, and to be able to dribble it from anywhere on the court.
It's a key point. You can't hide him defensively, which is against most teams in the NBA, you can do that. It's a great point.
127-105 was your final. Houston right back in this series. Talk much more about this over the course of the show. Let's talk football on the other side. Coming up, Dak Prescott has some lofty expectations for himself, as lofty as it gets. Hear from him next on First Things First.
At Buffalo Wild Wings, we'll admit that we often go overboard with our limited time offerings. We just can't help ourselves. Take our new signature sampler. For $15, you get wings and 3 shareable options, like fried pickles or cheese curds. Then there's our aptly named over-the-top nachos, a literal mountain of crispy tortilla chips loaded with your choice of pulled pork or honey barbecue chicken, corn, jalapenos, and more. Then top it all off with our new Platinum Margarita. Go overboard with us today at Buffalo Wild Wings. Wings, beer, sports. Available for a limited time while supplies last. Please drink responsibly.
All right, let's talk Dallas Cowboys now. Quick history. 2 seasons ago, Cowboys went 13-3, made the playoffs. Last season, they went 9-7, missed the playoffs. Why? Ezekiel Elliott sat out 6 games. Des Bryant was average, and Dak Prescott took a step back. Prescott threw 13 interceptions, 3 times the amount he threw his rookie season. But Dak is still confident in his abilities. Here's what he had to say about the pressure of playing for a contract this season.
I want to be the best I can. I want to be the best quarterback that the Cowboys ever had. You know what I mean? So when I go in each and every day, it's just about working to be the best player I can be, and all that stuff comes when you play the game well.
We've talked a lot about the Cowboys, CC, this offseason, between Dak and Zeke coming back, between Dez and Witten not being there. Are the Dallas Cowboys set up for Dak to be a top-tier quarterback with everything they have and the pieces they have in place right now?
Well, I don't know. That's one of the questions going into the season. Can they answer that? You know, is Dak an elite quarterback, and or have the Dallas Cowboys put in a position to be an elite quarterback? And if he's going to be an elite quarterback, first thing you have to do is look at Dallas, what style they're going to play. Offensive line, they got 3 Pro Bowls on the offensive line. They got one of the top 2 or 3 running backs in the NFL. So it's going to be, offense going to be dictated on what they do. So they're going to be a running dominant team. What other quarterbacks have started their career on either running dominated teams or on teams that were defensive oriented, teams that the quarterbacks that have won the Super Bowl? Of recent history, Russell Wilson. Before that, Joe Flacco. And before that, Ben Roethlisberger. All these quarterbacks, especially Ben and Russell, took over defensive-oriented teams when they were very, very young. And that's just like taking over a team that has a dominant running game.
Would you add maybe to that list Tom Brady? When the original iteration
they
of the
weren't
Patriots?
defensive dominant.
Okay.
I would say they were just a good team.
All right.
I would say in the skill sets of those other 2 players, I'm going to try to tell a story between the 2 of them. And I just believe it's very, very important that how do you change that ID from the team that you took over? Ben, when he took over, they were defensive-oriented, went to the Super Bowl, managed the game. All right, after that, what'd they do? They got Ben some weapons around them. They started throwing the ball a little more, started trusting them. Then they became prolific in the passing game. Russell Wilson, he's very, very similar to Dak. You know, not a high draft pick, took over because either I'm better or a guy's injured. Now, Seattle had a defensive-dominated team and Marshawn Lynch. Got him a couple wide receivers, unheralded. They developed in where they could throw the ball at a high, high rate. Now, Dak, what's he going to do? I don't believe the defense is going to become dominant. Did Dallas get him the type of weapons around him that I believe help him become one of the most prolific offensive throwing teams? No, I don't see that. So if he is not careful, he's going to end up like Joe Flacco. Because Joe Flacco took over. They haven't changed their ID.
Right.
But maybe they tried and realized they couldn't. Didn't Baltimore at least try? I mean, they just saw he wasn't able to do it.
Baltimore has never put the necessary resources behind Joe Flacco to help him become an elite passer. Now, people might say, well, Joe Flacco, you know, he hasn't helped Baltimore. But Baltimore has been a defensive-oriented team since Ray Lewis has retired. They're still trying to figure out what their identity is going to be. But
Flacco, I mean, the best weapon they gave him post-Super Bowl is Steve Smith.
Yes.
At the later portion of his career. Like, I mean, so that's I think the point is that they didn't, those other teams brought in, Seattle brings in Jimmy Graham, and they developed the young wide receivers. Pittsburgh, we know, they spend high draft pick on Mike Wallace. They also develop Antonio Brown. Like, they give him the weapons. So you're saying Dallas
right now, Dak's best receiver is a guy don't want to be known as an athlete, want to be known as a rapper, and Cole Beasley. I mean, like, that to me is not setting you up to play great. all right? They need a #1 receiver. They don't have one on their roster. And teams, as we saw last year, put more and more people committed to the line of scrimmage. They slow down Zeke. And then what do? Now the rest of the pressure is on Dak, and we haven't seen him grow. And that's the question that he's going to have to answer this season.
I got a question for you here. And if you are a great quarterback, I'm not saying Dak is, but if you are a great quarterback, rank these for me in order of importance. A great offensive line, a great running back, a great wide receiving core. If you're a great quarterback, your wish list, #1 would be what?
A great offensive line.
#2 would be what?
In this new NFL, it's hard to say with a running back because there's so many guys that seem to do it by committee. I would say, if he's going to be a special Hall of Fame back, I would say the running back compared to the wide receiver.
Okay, so this is exactly what I thought you'd say. If you're a great quarterback, the weapons around you are less important than, are you protected? And does the other team have to respect the running game?
Give yourself a chance to succeed.
Right. Do you have a chance to succeed? And is the other team's game plan going into the week only about stopping the passing attack, or do they also have to worry about stopping the running game, right?
So you don't know if your quarterback is a great quarterback.
Well, so you walked me right into it, Jenna. If you're already a Pro Bowl quarterback, if Drew Brees stepped into the Cowboys, yeah, I think Aaron Rodgers, any of the great guys, they'd be like, this is awesome. I'm never getting hit. My running back's great. I'll make the wide receivers spectacular. Right. But if you're not yet a great quarterback, you might change that order of importance. You might say, man, I'd really like some wide receivers that I know can go up and get the ball for me. Mm-hmm. Someone that I know is going to win 50-50 balls. Someone that I know that if I throw a quick slant to, he can maybe break it open and make those chunk plays. And that's what Dak doesn't have. So in order for the Cowboys' philosophy to make it look like they've got a great offense, Dak then has to be that first group because the wide receivers aren't going to do it for him.
And if Dak is saying, I want to be the greatest quarterback ever, the Dallas franchise have to realize the two greatest quarterbacks they ever had, the great Roger Staubach and Troy Aikman, look at the players they had around them.
Of course.
Not only did Roger have the legendary coach, he had the innovation of the coach, the new offensive thing, first team to go in motion with the shifts and everything, but in the backfield, wide receiver, like Pro Bowl players at that. Troy Aikman, he's part of the triplets. Michael Irvin, Emmett, Hall of Famers, Hall of Fame offensive linemen, Pro Bowl offensive linemen, 3 of the 5. So they had the supporting cast, which supported the quarterback that they could eventually get to that greatness that both of them reached.
So getting back to what you said, rank what you think that Dak Prescott has. So where, as far as his offensive line, his running back, his running game, and his wide receivers, they have a running game.
I think they have one of the 5 best offensive lines in football, and when healthy, arguably one of the 2 best. I think they have, when healthy or when on the field, one of the 2 best running backs in football. And I think they don't have one of the 22 best wide receiving cores in football.
Okay.
I think that's where they're at right now.
So if you have 2 of the 3, isn't that sort of the Cowboys setting you up in some capacity to be successful?
I think it's setting the team up potentially to be successful, but not necessarily Dak for the progression that we thought he would have.
In the NFL, you move the ball by the running game, but you score the football by the passing game. And right now, they're not scoring enough touchdowns to be able to offset their defense.
All right, cool. Take a break. Coming up, hey, Kevin Durant quotes Forrest Gump. That's next.
Really?
First Things First. Back here on First Things First, we're going viral. The New York Giants have high hopes for their rookie running back, Saquon Barkley. And if his golf game is any indication, they should have no concerns whatsoever.
Bingo, baby, let's go. Let's go for the gram or the Snapchat.
Was that what was the level of difficulty? Just because I want to make sure there's a proper correlation between
that was about a 9-footer.
How excited they got and how.
Yeah, probably the percentage on PGA Tour from 9 to 12 feet is probably like 15%, but it's not a lot of guys fitting in the khakis like that. I didn't even know he even made the putt. Now, the probability of any human being getting into a pair of shorts like that now is not real high.
Look at those quads.
This is.
That's what you call tight fit.
I mean, this guy is built, man. You said it when we were at the Ohio State game.
Oh, absolutely.
The guys, they weren't wearing their jerseys, so you didn't see their, and I didn't know what Saquon's face looked like. And CC just said to me, he's like, guess which one of them's Barkley? There's 30 guys just jogging. They weren't running full speed.
Yeah.
And you could just, man, I was like, is it, you got it. Like, he just stands out, man.
Man, 220, 6 foot. I mean, he is packed full of muscle. Workout phenom like you, Jenna. Loves to be in the weight room.
It does.
Powerlifting champ. I mean, he's a special player. Zero character flaws. Yeah. And as you can see, the manufacturer's not used to that type of package. You know.
In those shorts, it looks
Yeah.
like it looked like they painted them on him. That's remarkable,
They
man.
look good, though. I mean, they fit him well.
The guys, by the way, our production staff thinks they're really cute, so they want me to call them Tiger Woods or Phil Fickelson.
I know, they've been saying it in my ear. I chose to
either
ignore
one,
it.
but they wouldn't stop telling me.
Yep, same thing. Same thing.
Bubba Quadson. That one was funny. That was well done. All right, I like it now.
Stories to start your morning now. Yesterday, the NBA announced the 3 finalists for MVP, the Beard, the King, and the Brow. I wonder what their nicknames are. The winners of these awards will be announced on June 25th. Chris, who do you think should win MVP this year?
Oh, James Harden.
All right.
Outstanding. The last 2 of the last 3 years, he should have taken home one of those trophies. They didn't give it to him. This is not a makeup year. He deserves it, and he's going to win it.
He's going to win it. There is some intrigue. Will LeBron or Anthony Davis finish second? I think that'll be very close. I'm also curious how close Harden comes to unanimous. I don't think he'll be unanimous. I think LeBron and Anthony Davis will get 4 or 5 votes, but Harden's going to run away with it.
The NBA also announced the 3 finalists for Rookie of the Year and for Rookie of the Year who sat out the first year. They combined both awards. Ben Simmons, Donovan Mitchell, and Jason Tatum. Nick, how great can this rookie class be all time?
Well, when you consider the fact that all year long the discussion was Simmons or Mitchell, and now after this postseason, I think a lot of people are saying, man, I think Tatum might end up being the best of all of them.
Oh, yeah.
As far as top 3 goes, it's not quite LeBron, Wade, Bosh, but it's a hell of a rookie class, man.
Oh, you can make a case for all of them. Ben Simmons, he was the most consistent. His triple-double numbers during his rookie year, outstanding. Donovan Mitchell, he's the real rookie of the year, true rookie of the year, drafted last year. And Tatum, if you throw in the playoffs, you could make a case for him being outstanding with the multiple 20-point games in a row, the most in franchise history. So you can't be wrong. Any of the players you select in that group.
On to the NFL now. Cowboys defensive end Randy Gregory is officially applying for reinstatement with the NFL today. He was suspended all of last season for violating the NFL substance abuse policy. The Cowboys drafted him in the 2nd round back in 2015. CeCe, how big of a boost would getting Gregory back be for the Dallas Cowboys defense?
It would help offset the lack of playmakers they have on their offense as far as wide receivers. If you pair him with DeMarcus Lawrence on the other side, you put him in a rush specialist situation, getting him back into the league. He is a guy that for multiple years can have 10 sacks for your organization. And you got to give credit to Jerry Jones here. People behind the scenes don't know about Jerry, the love he has for players, but he has gotten Randy the best care that money could buy. He's hung in there with him when a lot of people have given up on him. I also wrote a letter this week to the NFL for Randy to get him reinstated. I've been part of his overall recovery. He has done a great job in completing one of the most strenuous programs out there in the country, so we are cheering for Randy Gregory.
And just quickly, the Cowboys in 2015 take Gregory, who's a first-round talent, falls because of the drug issues. 2016 take Jalen Smith, a first-round talent who falls because of an injury. Both the front 7 defensive guys. If they get both those guys back, the defense looks very different.
All right, last, we have Des Bryant. Yesterday, Des replied to a tweet that asked if he regrets not taking the Ravens' 3-year contract offer, the only offer he's received since being let go by the Cowboys. Des tweeted back, nope, not one bit. Then he proceeded to blame the media for tarnishing his character. CeCe, do you think Des should have signed with the Ravens?
No, I don't think he should. There's plenty of time left. I wouldn't sign a deal that I'm not happy with, because even though you're on a team, the player's not happy. So Des is motivated, but being stuck there, and from a skill set standpoint, I don't believe it's the best fit for him. As far as the quarterback that they do not have a good intermediate or short passing game. Joe Flacco throws the ball down the field. That's the best part of his throwing skill set. Dez is not that type of wide receiver. Him and Michael Crabtree are both that possession to intermediate wide receiver. Both of them are ex-receivers. So, no, I think Dez did the best thing for him. Continue to work out. Continue to hear from other teams, because I believe that would have been a long-term mistake, and because he wasn't happy.
And also keep this in mind, it wasn't a one-year offer, it was a 3-year offer. Why does that matter? We just saw Dez struggle with a rookie quarterback and second-year quarterback in Dak Prescott. Who's going to be the Ravens quarterback, we believe most likely, a year from now, if not sooner? Lamar Jackson.
Yes.
A guy that is going to have a learning curve as far as throwing at the NFL level. I think that's fair to say.
The same thing with Dak, what he went through with Dak in Dallas.
Exactly right. So I understand Dez's. I understand why Dez would say no to that. I don't understand why Dez is on Twitter as much as I am. I don't. I would like to think that if I were looking for a job, I would not be maybe actively antagonizing folks on Twitter. I know it can be hard. I know how powerful this thing can be, but I don't think that's helping Dez. I don't know how much it's hurting him, but I'm certain it's not helping him as far as trying to get the right team to offer him a job.
You guys both make a great point. I didn't factor in the fact that Lamar Jackson could very well be their quarterback, and then you're playing with a young quarterback again. But you think he turned down that job because you don't think he fit in schematically and not because he wasn't happy with the money?
It's the money and the length of the contract. You shouldn't sign a bad contract. Just because you're out of work, you can't be desperate. Like Dez is going to get a job in the NFL, and it doesn't fit his strong suit. Now, their organization, they do fit players like Dez. They do fit in, but I still believe there are better fits out there for Dez. Potentially, Seattle. They had Brandon Marshall in last week, and if they're looking at Brandon Marshall, they're looking at a big receiver, possession. They should be looking at Dez Bryant, and they can handle his personality in that locker room with the style for which they. So Seattle, I believe, is another team that will be looking at a wide receiver as we get closer to training camp.
Okay. We got ourselves a basketball series out west. Houston tied up the conference finals with a big win last night, aggressive on both ends of the court. Houston went at Steph Curry hard, and it worked as Steph couldn't find his shot, going 1 for 8 on three-pointers. Kevin Durant, however, stellar, again, pouring in 38 points in the loss to Houston. Afterwards, KD said, quote, "Hey, expletive happens. We're not invincible. We're not the juggernauts of the NBA. We're a good team, but that's not a great team. But that's a great team, rather, on the other end as well." Nick, you think the Warriors can be beaten now, or was last night the outlier game?
We will see if last night was the outlier game. I think a lot of people had Warriors in 5 and thought the one game the Rockets would win is Game 2 in Houston. So we'll see if those people are proven correct. Do I think they can win? Yes, I think they can win. And I've been trying to make sure when it comes to my Warriors analysis, it's actual analysis rather than hopeful optimism, because of my concern about whether or not this team is going to go on some run that removes any competitive balance from the NBA over the next few years. But the Rockets yesterday, aside from P.J. Tucker, nobody played out way over their skis. It's not like, oh, there's no way they can play that level of defense again. That's the defense they played all year. There's no way they can, turn the ball over like that few times or force. They played a typical Rockets home game last night. They got 2 more of those home games theoretically in this series. Do I think they can win? Absolutely. Do I think they're the favorites anymore like I did going into the series? No, because they no longer have home court in this series. But can they win? I do believe they can win.
But you wouldn't say there's no way that only one of the 4 big Warrior stars are going to actually show up.
What I would say is I think Draymond offensively is going to be limited all series. And so I think, listen, Clay was limited last night, and Steph's been limited in both games. But I also don't think KD is necessarily going to average 38 a game for the series. He might average 32. I don't know if he's going to average 38. Go ahead.
It's the flow of the game. He realized he had to do more in game number 1 because Steph didn't get off. KD got him off to a great start, so he's going with the flow of the game. Clay couldn't get hot in game number 2, so he's got to get more buckets. They go more isolation to him. But the fact that Houston, they talk about they didn't change their style, they didn't do isolation. Can they beat this team? Yes, if they play at the pace they did in last night's game, they can. During the regular season, they averaged 17 dunks and layups a game. Last night, they get 24. Well, how'd they get most of those? Either off of makes or off the rebound. Immediately, they got on the attack. So you don't want to play against Golden State, just like Cleveland in the other series, you don't want to play against their half-court defense. Celtics probably best in the league. Well, the numbers prove best in the league. And the Warriors probably number 2 or 3 in the league. So get out on the break early. Try to get some fast break or layups. And if not, going against that defense, unsettled, you still have a better percentage of getting a good shot.
And listen, I know obviously Houston wanted to be up 2-0 in this spot. But I also know, without a shadow of a doubt, this isn't conjecture. This is from talking to people around the team. Houston, from the top down, they've had one goal all year long. Can we get the Warriors to a best of 3 where 2 of those 3 games are in Houston? What does that mean? It means get home court advantage in the playoffs and have it tied at 2 after 4 games. Can we get in that situation? Because Houston knows everything Daryl Morey's done, D'Antoni, Harden MVP, they know that the Warriors are the more talented team. They know that the Warriors, over a long enough horizon of a sample size, will beat every team in this league in a series. So they want to shorten it as much as possible, add some variance. That's part of what the three-pointer does. Now they know if we can get a split in Golden State, we've done what we set out this year to do. Have it be a best of 3 with the first and the third game in our building and see what the hell happens.
The other thing they want to do is play the kind of basketball that got them there, is what I hear from every single member of that team and the coaching staff. We want to nail our three-pointers. We want to play whatever type of isolation ball we want to play. And last night they did. They hit 16 three-pointers. When they hit 16 three-pointers or more a game, they're 42-3. The Rockets.
Great number.
That's an incredible number. They did that. They played their game. All their shots were going in. And it wasn't just from James Harden like it was in Game 1.
Yeah, and it's also not only the shooting, not only the threes. The record there is outstanding with the threes. 16 of those in last night's game. Defensively, how many quarters can they hold the Warriors under scoring 30 points? Last night's game, not one quarter. Scored 29 twice. All right, but not getting to 30. That is the number. The rest of the number for the NBA, the other teams, you want to try to keep them under 25 points. When you're playing against the Warriors, you want to keep them under 30. So not only the shooting numbers, you got to watch what they do from three-point line. Watch how many times they get to the hole and get dunks on our layups, and watch from a defensive standpoint, because the only way they're going to get a championship in Houston is if they continue that, keeping the Warriors under those explosive 35, 38-point quarters.
And I want to talk, you mentioned Steph and Clay, so I want to talk about them each for a moment and then explain how Kevin Durant leads into that. Like, Steph, one of the reasons he's struggling is because they are making him work on the defensive end, because they are being as good as any team I've seen in recent memory, staying true to, we are not letting him have 6 inches of space. Now, because of that, he's been able to get to the rim quite a bit in this series, but he's not getting open jump shots. See, what was your note on Klay Thompson when CP3 was guarding him? What's he shooting?
Oh, yes. Shooting,
was it 25%?
25%, 16% for three-point range.
All right, well, CP3 is one of the greatest point guard defenders we've ever seen. Like, so that there's a method to that. And then there's Kevin Durant. Like, if we could show America what Kevin Durant's totals are in this series, 75 points, that jumps off the page.
That's crazy.
6 rebounds, 1 assist.
Not so crazy.
And 1 total steal and block.
The 1 assist is remarkable.
It's remarkable. So why do I bring that up? They are refusing to leave guys to help on KD. They are refusing to let KD's offense be a virus in a good way that affects his teammates. That we're so scared of what KD's doing that he all of a sudden is getting other guys flowing. If you can hold, so 38 points sounds, it is amazing. But if we're talking like 38 points and 1 assist, or 37 points and 0 assists he's had in these 2 games.
Then those are the only points.
Right, that's the same line as a 25-5 night.
Right.
Right, and when it comes to points created. So that's, the Rockets have been earnest in that effort, and it's been sick. Well, last night, it was successful for them.
All right, we're going to get back to football on the other side. Coming up, does Aaron Rodgers still have a lot to prove? That's next. First things first. Welcome back to First Things First. We're now joined by former head coach Eric Mangini. What's going on, Eric?
Good
Coach?
morning. Good to see you guys.
How are
Everything
you?
good?
Yeah, excited to talk about all the great topics we have.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. We're excited to do it.
Well, we're going to talk about a great quarterback. Okay. Last season, Aaron Rodgers was limited to just 7 games with a broken collarbone. As a result, the Green Bay Packers missed the playoffs for the first time since 2008. Probably just a coincidence, I'm sure. He recently was asked about what drives him entering his 14th season. He said that he's driven by, quote, sustained greatness, and added that he wants to have a fairy tale ending with the Packers. Coach, does Aaron Rodgers need to win another Super Bowl to cement his greatness?
No, not at all. When you look at Aaron Rodgers' numbers versus other great quarterbacks at this time in his career, it's pretty impressive. He's got more touchdowns, more yards, less interceptions than Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, Dan Fouts, Joe Montana, Brett Favre. Who am I missing? Who am I? Drew Brees.
It's almost everyone but Marino, right? As far as at this point in his career.
Yeah, the numbers are incredible. And when you look at it versus Brett Favre, he's got, I think it's 80 less interceptions and 60 more touchdowns. They have about the same record. They have an identical record. So his numbers comparatively are impressive, but in coaching against them, there's so many things that he does well. His accuracy, especially his accuracy on the run, is amazing. You can be in tight man-to-man coverage with a very small window, and he's able to put it in spots that you could give other quarterbacks 10 chances to do it, and they couldn't get it there. So I don't think he has anything to prove, but I would like him to see. Or would like to see him have more Super Bowl wins. I think he should have more Super Bowl wins.
And certainly appearances. Like, it's the one win, but it's also just the one appearance. Listen, I'm not old enough to have watched live Dan Fouts, but I hear Chris and you talk about how ahead.
Really, we're gonna go there?
No, well, no.
I'm not old. I'm really old.
No. I didn't say Johnny Unitas.
Chris.
I didn't say that's not what I was doing. I was trying.
You boys were walking there with leather helmets.
You're twisting something negative. I was trying to be.
Okay.
I've heard you guys both talk about. Unbelievable.
Yeah.
I've heard you guys both talk about how almost ahead of his time he was with what he was able to do throwing the football in that era. Dan Marino I was able to see, and Dan Marino, what he was able to do from basically his second year in the league is when he took Miami to the Super Bowl. I have felt that in my era of watching football, no one's a better thrower of the ball than Aaron Rodgers. That as far as raw quarterback talent, ability to make every throw, tight windows, whatever it is, I've never seen someone better. The reason, though, that he is not discussed as Montana or Brady or even Elway, like, is he the greatest quarterback ever, is the Super Bowls. It is purely the Super Bowls. If he wins just one more Super Bowl, I would say people will start having the Rodgers-Manning argument. People will start having for a quarterback, to me, if you want to be considered the greatest at that position ever, you have to have two things: amazing statistical resume and multiple championships. It's why for a long time, fairly or unfairly, Peyton wasn't in the discussion until he had this last act of his career with Denver, getting to another Super Bowl, setting more records, and then ultimately getting another championship. That's the one thing Rodgers is missing from a historical context, even if our eye test says this guy's as good as anyone we've ever seen.
He is as good. Dan Marino and myself, I'm a little bit older than Nick. Dan Marino and Aaron Rodgers they're the best throwers of the football in the last 40 years. Warren Moon is very, very close, but I'll just keep it at Dan and Aaron. The reason why Dan is not in the conversation, one of the greatest quarterbacks, is because he didn't win any Super Bowls. Went to one Super Bowl, didn't have the support around him, didn't have the running game. So maybe in our eyes, Aaron Rodgers, like, we know how great he is. We know how hard he is to defend. As a wide receiver, man, what it would be like to play with him. But in the era where this is what we did judge the quarterbacks by. Since Aaron Rodgers came into the league, the Super Bowls have gone like this: Big Ben, Peyton, Eli, Big Ben, Breeze, Rodgers, Eli, Flacco, Russ, Brady, Peyton, Brady, Nick Foles. So in this era, we've had a couple guys that have won multiple Super Bowls. Now, you can't retire as Aaron Rodgers and say, wow, when did you play? Man, I played in the era where Ben won 2, Eli won 2, Peyton won 2, Brady won 2. Like, but I only won 1. Now, I don't consider that not a Hall of Fame career, but if Eli, and especially Big Ben, because they were supported by their team, if they got a couple Super Bowls, then if he's going to be included in that class, he's going to have to be able to get another Super Bowl. Not to affirm what I believe in him, but but based on the way people judge the quarterbacks, Coach.
It's interesting, though, when you look at Peyton's last Super Bowl, you wouldn't look at that and say Peyton drove that last Super Bowl.
Absolutely.
It was the defense that drove that Super Bowl, but his
different than John Elway.
Yeah, the Elway, and when you look at Eli and the defenses that they had in New York, and so, and even Big
Ben's first one, for sure.
Big Ben's first one, a great defensive team. So I don't think it's fair. I don't think that's necessarily the most fair evaluation is how many Super Bowls they get, because you'd have to put with Peyton's. How much credence do you want to
give that last one?
Yeah,
Peyton was much more impressive the year in Denver that they lost the Super Bowl.
Yes,
you know
those
what I mean?
2 years, yes.
The
numbers.
But the year they got to the Super Bowl and got crushed by Seattle. And
amazing.
He was unbelievable. The year before that, he was unbelievable. And then that last year, remember, I mean, he was injured, but then they were sticking with Osweiler, and then they only went to Peyton at the end of it.
And when you look at this year, as much as Brady did in this past Super Bowl, he couldn't overcome what they were doing defensively. I mean, he gave them every single opportunity, the numbers, the points, all those things, but he couldn't overcome it. And in football, if you don't have that complementary or at least adequate defense and special teams, you're always going to be swimming upstream.
So if we give Peyton credit for having won a Super Bowl, even though statistically it wasn't that impressive, what's more important? I mean, could you have great stats and not have the Super Bowl, or you could be Joe Flacco and have a Super Bowl and not have the numbers?
Listen, there are two names on that list that stand out like a sore thumb. One is Nick Foles, one is Joe Flacco.
Yeah.
Just period, point blank. Like, those are two guys that we're listing other guys where if you take those two guys off, the worst quarterback on there is Eli, and Eli going to end up in the Hall of Fame. You know, I mean, I think most likely he will with the 2 Super Bowls.
But Foles and Flacco.
Foles and Flacco are but they're also the outliers on the list.
Yes.
But the other
supported by their team.
Exactly. But what's odd is when we're talking about pure passers on the list, the 2 best pure passers might be the 2 guys on that list that only have one. Brees and Rodgers. 2 guys, like, I think I think Brady is in the argument for forget quarterback, greatest football player ever, if such a thing exists. But that's not because you watch him throw the football and you say, oh my God, it's perfect. Like, Brees has done it. What Brees has done with just the raw accumulation of yards, what Rodgers has done with different guys at wide receiver, not a ton of all-pro caliber weapons around him, a team that doesn't spend a ton of money in free agency. It's remarkable, but I just know I didn't set the rules on how we evaluate these guys. I didn't set the rule that Dan Marino gets disqualified from the discussion, but Dan Marino's been disqualified from the discussion. Like, Warren Moon doesn't really get to participate in the discussion. Like, those have been the rules that we kind of inherited. It's why you look at Elway's stats. Elway's stats are, even when you adjust for era, are not impressive. But dude went to 5 Super Bowls and won 2 of them, so he gets elevated because of that.
Yeah, and where are the rules? Like, who sets the rules in terms of what we can discuss as
the
great?
Take Council?
I haven't been to that rule committee meeting. I think that if you were doing a draft and you had all those quarterbacks on the board and you were starting a team, forget about any rules or who would you want to take. And I think that Aaron Rodgers would be right up at the top of the list.
All right. Coach, we'll see you a little bit later in the show.
All right.
Drop the mic, Coach.
Coming up. That's why I ended it there.
He did it. He actually
Did you do it? Barely heard it. How did the Rockets figure out how to beat the Warriors? Steven Jackson next with all that insight next on First Things First. Back here on First Things First, Steven Jackson is here. Steven, you're not just a tough guy when we introduce you. I watched your workout. Steven, let me tell you what Steven did. He put a camera, hit live. He didn't need to entertain. He didn't anything. He just went and did his workout. If you want to join, come join and watch. And if you don't, you don't. And just put it out there, Steven Jackson.
And did you get some shots up yesterday, too?
Yeah, I worked on my game for about 2 hours at the NBPA gym. They got a nice facility over there, man. Nice facility.
Man, Big 3 folks going to be
they're going to pay.
I
led in scoring last year. They're going to pay this year, too.
Scoring champ, Steven
Killer
Jackson.
threes.
All right. Well, we also want you for your insight. Big game last night. So much for the Rockets being out of this series. So much for iso ball not working for him this postseason. So much for the unstoppable offense of the Golden State Warriors. The Rockets were good and aggressive, and unlike Game 1, they got help from players not named James Harden last night. P.J. Tucker and Eric Gordon combined for 49 points. Here's their head coach after the game.
We are who we are, and we had to be who we are. We just did it better, longer. Guys believe it, and we're not going to change anything up. It would be silly on my part to panic. I mean, you don't do that. we're very comfortable about who we are. And we can beat anybody, anywhere, at any time, playing the way we play.
So we had that mindset tonight after a loss to be the aggressor. And we have to keep that same mentality in game 3 and game 4. Like, no matter where we are, if we have that mindset, we're in good hands.
They were desperate tonight. They played like it, and we didn't. And the results showed.
Steven Jackson took some issue with what head coach Mike D'Antoni was saying. Talk
Anybody, anywhere, any place, any time.
Okay, D'Antoni, you wasn't talking like this after game 1. I didn't hear crickets. All I heard was crickets. You wasn't this confident after game 1. We are who we are. Okay, we understand that. But thank you for letting us know that you changed your offense, because y'all didn't do the same thing. James Harden didn't have 6,000 dribbles. Chris Paul didn't have 6,000 dribbles. Y'all shared the ball. They did what I said yesterday on the show.
Yes.
They gave the guys who you expect to guard all game a chance to be good on offense.
Gave them some love.
You share the ball. We all said ISO ball wasn't going to win. They trying to stick in their ways and say it in the media, but they did not play like that last night. They shared the ball. Good thing about it, on defense, they was the hit first team. Golden State was the hit first team the first game. They came out and played with a sense of urgency, did what they had to do. Eric Gordon, I think he can play like this the rest of this series. I think he can be solid and score points. P.J. Tucker, absolutely not. Okay?
You can't depend on that?
12 20-point games in 522 games. Okay?
I think you said P.J. Tucker couldn't score 22 again if they locked him in the arena.
By himself. Okay? If you expect
on 88% shooting.
If you expect this P.J. Tucker to get 22 points a game for the rest of the series, you lost your mind. Okay? You don't know anything about basketball. But great game for them last night. They did what they had to do to win this game, going back to Golden State.
Here's the only thing you said I take issue with is they were equally as isolation heavy in game 2 as game 1, but they were totally different types of isolation. How they did it. Your point on the dribbling, it wasn't a 14-second isolation where James Harden's just cross the whole time. It was quicker isolations that led to open shots for the role players. It was driving kicks. In game 1, Harden had 26 of those isolations by himself. Yesterday, he had 16. CP3 had 16.
Nick, how many times did Harden dribble the ball in game number 1?
550 times, according to Spectrum.
And how many shots did he take?
In game 1?
500.
No.
Right. But it was night and day. It's night and day.
The dribbling note is he dribbled the ball 550 times. Steph, KD, and Clay dribbled combined 549. The broadcast did a great job showing that. So that you just visually you saw last night, even though it was still ISO heavy, it was back to the type of basketball I saw the Rockets play all year, which was the excellent defense, top 6 defense in the regular season, top 3 defense in the postseason. They shared the basketball, and they ran on you. Like, that's who they were this regular season.
Yeah, the fast break points and the defense. That's the difference in this Houston team, not only the depth for which they had. I like that they went with a tighter rotation. Now, let me tell you about your boy, Luke Richard. He can't come off the bench again. Next time he come off the bench, need to be at the parade. Like, he was awful in quarter number 1 after being bad in quarter number 2.
Layups, man.
But at the end of the day, it's about defense. Houston, are they going to be different in the playoff than any other Houston team we've seen? 2016, where they rank as far as defense, 26. This year, a top 10 team, ranked number 6. And it starts with their point guard in Chris Paul. When he was guarding Clay, when Clay was going against everyone else, Harden was guarding, he's shooting 50%, 60% from three-point line. When Gordon is guarding, he's shooting 40 and 33%. When CP is on Clay, it's been the matchup of the first two games. He's shooting 25% from the field and 16% from three-point. So we can talk about their offense. We can talk about fast break points. All those things true. But their defense is what sets them apart from any other team that we have seen that just played at pace and shot threes.
Yeah, they were real physical last night. And I even though KD had a great game, I think Ariza set the tone. He came out, he was banging KD, he was talking to him, getting him to talk trash. I think that got everybody else on the team going. And like I said, Chris Paul, he's a great defender. He knows how to dirty the game up. Trust me, he's a feisty little guy. But I guarantee you he won't be able to stop play for the rest of the series like that.
Their goal is not stop KD, because you saw that. They're letting KD do what he wants to do.
Yeah, you can't do that anyway.
Correct, but look what happened to the rest of the team.
Right.
For example, Steph Curry. What happened with Steph Curry last night? He just hasn't been able to find his shot, and he whether he's injured or not, he just doesn't look like he's comfortable or has control over his matchup out there.
Yeah, wait, let's address the injury thing. Do you think he's injured, or do you care?
I don't care, and I don't think he's hurt. If you're out there on the court at this point, you're healthy. James and Chris Paul did a great job, but I was about to say something about KD. He can lead this team all he wants. He can score all the points, but last night, that team looked like they was fresh out of V-Live strip club at the beginning of the game. They was
V-Live got shut down for not paying its taxes.
V-Live have strip clubs all around.
The one in Houston got shut down for not paying its taxes.
It's a different name now.
Okay, gotcha.
Yes,
Go ahead, as you were.
Literally couldn't be more inside.
G5. You got it. You got it.
My bad. But they look like they came out.
No other morning show will have that.
None. Shout out to DC. My boy DC. They came out just like they was tired, like they fresh out the club, and
Making
they had
it rain
so
a different
many
type of way, Jenna.
Exactly.
Okay.
So many turnovers. Draymond had like 4 or 5 unforced turnovers. They were just they looked like we showed up today. Let's hurry up and get this game over with so we can get back to Golden State. We did what we need to. That's how they started the game off. And KD, the only one came to play last night.
And I'm not gonna sit here and be like the Warriors. They lost game 2. They're screwed. I'm not saying that. I think most people, if they picked Warriors in 5, which was a popular pick, thought the one game Houston would win would be game 2 at home. But what I will say is Golden State has, in the series, the only series they've lost in this era, everyone focuses on the final 3 games against Cleveland, when LeBron went off, when they blew the 3-1 lead. The turning point in that series...
They didn't have KD.
I understand that, but just stay with me for a second. They were up 2-0 against Cleveland, and in Game 3, they came out, didn't care. They could have won the series that night. And in the first quarter, I believe in that game, they were down 21 points almost instantly. They did not come out with a sense of urgency. I feel like last night, they could have won the series. If you steal the first 2 on the road, and now all of a sudden Houston not only has to win 4 out of 5 against you, but 3 of those games are in Golden State, you're finished. They could have won, and they didn't come out with a sense of urgency. I know the Rockets were desperate, but the Warriors could have been desperate to win the championship last night.
Those first 6 minutes were critical. When they threw the ball away, when they weren't even getting attempts. So I don't like the fact that, something, they could have taken over the series. Yeah, but there's a championship team on the other side that won 65 games for a reason.
Sure.
You mention it, but the only reason why I know it is because you tell me all the time. It's only 20 teams won 65 games. Well, the Houston Rockets are one of those teams. And 15 of those teams have won a championship.
And so to get back to Jenna's question on Steph, I think, listen, Steph is, when he is locked in, he is almost unguardable because he can pull up from 37 feet, and it looks like a good shot.
Steph is unguardable when they don't let him touch him. When you start getting in the playoff, Steph Curry, it's a different thing.
Well, that's what
because you can be more physical with
That's what I wanted to ask you about.
A lot of players.
How much of Steph's struggles in this series? We've seen Steph struggle in a few NBA finals. Is the other team will target him and make him work defensively when you're playing in this series or in the NBA finals? There's usually nowhere to hide defensively that you can have him go stand in the corner, so he's using energy there. The refs let you play a little bit more so you can bump him a little bit more. There were a bunch of times last night when he did get to the rim, he thought he should have got an and one. They didn't give him the and one.
But he played through it.
And he played through it. Like, how much of that is that this level, not level, but this time of year, this type of basketball doesn't exactly fit his strengths with his body type and with just his overall ability to play on both ends?
Well, we can't say it don't fit his strengths. He's a 2-time champ, 2-time MVP. So you can't say that. It's just Houston did a better job of being more physical from the jump last night. I don't think it's going to be like this whole series. Yeah, he's been battling injuries and all that, but I guarantee you, after this Game 3, we won't be saying that. I think he's going to get his offense back. I'm not saying they're going to beat Houston, but I'm saying he's going to get his offense back, and he's going to play what? Every time you go home, after playing the first 2 games on the road, you go home feeling great. Just being in your arena, sleeping in your own bed like we talked about the other day, it's a different feeling. And when you talking about a team like that, going home, one of the best home teams in the league, I'm not worried about it.
One thing watch for Steph, too, the refs aren't giving him the call. He shot 1 free throw yesterday. Got fouled a bunch of times in the lane. But if he shoots 1 free throw, that doesn't play to his strong suit.
But I'll be worried if he was whining about calls afterwards and not getting them. He played through it. They took their L, like KD say. We're not the NBA juggernauts. We're human.
By the way, in an odd turn of events, the house that, because they started their Hampton 5 last night, the house that KD rented in the Hamptons when they all met together was rented, put on the market
on the market for $15 million.
Nice.
Action Jack.